You do not need to see the entire road to take the next step. Most of the time, God does not give us the full map. He gives us just enough light to obey Him today. The problem is not always that we don't know what to do. Sometimes we know exactly what obedience requires. We're just waiting to feel more certain, more confident, more ready. Today, we're going to identify the next step, remove the excuses, and turn surrender into action. So let's get to work. Last Thursday, I talked about the most dangerous prayer I have ever prayed. God, whatever you want, I'm in. That prayer changed the direction of my life. But there's something important we need to understand. Surrender is not merely something you say. Surrender is something you demonstrate. It is completely possible to pray, God, use me, God, lead me, God, whatever you want, and then refuse to move until God explains every detail. We want the whole map. God often just gives us the next step. We want certainty, but God is asking us for trust. We want guarantees, but God is just asking us for obedience. The question is not only, have you surrendered your plans to God? The practical question is, what's the next step of obedience He is asking you to take? Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8 says this, Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am, send me. Isaiah responded before he knew everything the assignment would require. He didn't negotiate the conditions. He didn't ask how long it would take. He did not ask whether people would listen. He didn't ask whether the assignment would be comfortable. He simply made himself available. Here I am, send me. His availability came long before the clarity. That's often how obedience works. God does not always show you the entire journey. He shows you just enough to take the next faithful step. Psalm 119, verse 105 says, Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light into my path. You know that a lamp will not illuminate the next 10 miles. It gives you just enough light for the next few steps. God may not show you everything that is coming, but He will give you enough light to obey Him today. So how do you take the next obedient step? First, you have to identify what God has already made clear. Many people say they're waiting to hear from God when God's already spoken. The reality is they're waiting for a feeling. They're waiting for a sign. They're waiting for perfect peace to confirm what they already know is true. God's already made certain things clear through His word. You don't need another sign to forgive someone. You don't need another vision to simply tell the truth. You don't need a prophetic word to love your family well. You don't need perfect circumstances to serve. You don't need every question answered before you begin obeying what Scripture already teaches. James 1:22 says, Prove yourself as doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. The first question is not, what new things is God telling me? The first question should be, what has God already told me that I haven't done yet? Is there someone you need to forgive, a conversation you need to have? Is there a responsibility that you've been avoiding, a habit you know needs to change? Is there something God has already convicted you about? Something that He's already asked you to do, a step of obedience you haven't yet taken? Don't ask God for more instructions while ignoring the instructions He's already given you. Second, stop waiting for complete certainty. Obedience will often require you to move without complete certainty. In Luke chapter 5, Jesus tells Peter, Put out into deep water and then let down your nets for a catch. Peter had already been fishing all night. He was exhausted. He was experienced. He already had evidence that suggested trying again wouldn't work. But Peter said, Master, we worked hard all night and caught nothing. But at your word, I'll let down the nets. Peter did not obey because the situation made sense. He obeyed because Christ had spoken. Faith isn't pretending that you have no questions. Faith is choosing obedience while some questions remain unanswered. There may never be a moment when every fear disappears. There may never be a time when every risk is removed. It may never come to be that everyone understands your decision. At some point, you simply have to decide whether God's direction is enough. You don't need certainty about every outcome. You need confidence in the one leading you. Third, make this next step small enough to do today. Sometimes we make obedience harder because we only think in terms of massive decisions. We think obedience means quitting the job, moving across the country, launching the ministry, changing everything overnight. Sometimes obedience is dramatic, but most of the time it's much smaller. The next obedient step may be making the phone call, send in the application, make the apology, schedule the appointment, open the Bible, set the boundary, join the group, ask for help, show up. You may not be able to complete the entire assignment today, but you can usually take step one. Do not become so overwhelmed by the size of the journey that you refuse to take the step directly in front of you. Big acts of faith are usually built from small acts of obedience repeated over time. So complete this sentence. The next obedient step God is asking me to take is, fill in the blank. Make it specific. Make it measurable. Make it something you can begin within the next 24 hours. Fourth, obey before your feelings agree. Look, your feelings are real, but your feelings cannot always be trusted to lead you. Sometimes obedience feels exciting. Sometimes it's terrifying. Sometimes obedience feels inconvenient. Often it feels unfair. Sometimes obedience feels like loss before it feels like freedom. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says this, trust in Yahweh with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Trust means God's wisdom carries more weight than your emotions. You may not feel ready. You may not feel confident. You may not feel qualified. You may not feel strong enough. Obedience is not waiting until you feel ready. Obedience is moving because God is faithful. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing faithfulness while fear is still present. Number 5, leave the results with God. Your responsibility is obedience. The outcome, that belongs to God. This is where many people get stuck. They're willing to obey only when they feel they can control the results. They'll have the conversation if they know it'll go well. They'll serve if they know they'll be appreciated. They'll start if they know they can't fail. They'll give if they know that they'll have enough left over. They'll step out if they know everything will work. But obedience is not a contract guaranteeing your preferred outcome. Obedience is an act of trust. Isaiah said, "Here I am, send me." He didn't say, "Here I am as long as the assignment is successful in my definition." You control your yes. God controls what happens after your yes. You may obey and see immediate fruit. You may obey and face resistance. You may obey and experience a closed door. A closed door does not always mean you misunderstood God. Sometimes the obedient step is what God uses to redirect you towards something better. Faithfulness is not measured only by visible results. Faithfulness is measured by whether you obeyed. Before this day ends, do 3 things. First, write down step 1. Don't leave it vague. Write down exactly what you believe God is asking you to do. Second, give it a deadline. Put a date to it. Decide when you will take the action. Not someday, not when life gets easier. Choose a specific date and time. Third, tell one trusted person. Tell somebody who will pray for you and who will hold you accountable. Secrecy allows hesitation to grow. Accountability turns intention into action. Write it down, schedule it, Tell someone. Then move. You may not know where the road leads. You may not know how everything will work out. You may not know what obedience will cost you, but you probably know the next step. Stop demanding the whole map. Stop waiting for every fear to disappear. Stop asking God to reveal step 10 while you're still refusing to take step 1. Pray the prayer, God, whatever you want, I'm in. Then prove that prayer through your obedience. Make the call, have the conversation, set the boundary, ask for help, begin the work, take the next step. You don't have to understand the entire plan. You only have to be faithful with the light God has given you today. Surrender says, whatever you want. Faith answers, I'm in. Obedience gets up and moves. Take the next obedient step. In other words, be different.